right, guys, welcome back to She Shield Season 2. I am sitting here with Michelle Waterson, the Karate Hottie. I got to meet Michelle at SHOT Show 2025, and I was just blown away by your personality, Michelle. Just was so thankful to have a little moment with you. I met you with Julia Zindira and in the middle of the crazy SHOT Show experience. So I was really lucky to do that. And I'm so glad that now we get to sit down and talk about your beautiful career. And I'm hoping to ask you a bit about what it's been like to balance career and family and all that fun stuff. So thank you so much for sitting down with me today. I would love for you to introduce yourself to the listeners for those that don't know your just awesome past, please, and present.
Okay. Well, yeah, it was great meeting you, and it's cool. I mean, once you get into the firearm industry, I think it's just like the martial art industry. It's a very small world, so you kind of you do a full circle and you get to know everybody. Yeah, so my background is martial arts. I started doing karate since I was like 10, and that's kind of where I got my nickname, the Karate Hottie. Actually, I was a Hooters waitress putting myself through school, and I would do all these small little
Awesome.
like side gigs. I was doing like a photo shoot, and the guy found out that I did karate, and he's like, "Hey, let's do a photo shoot. We'll call you the Karate Hottie." I was like, "Cool, yeah, let's do it." And 6, 7 months down the road, I got into fighting, and the promoter asked if I had a fight name. I told him I didn't, and so he Googled me, and that was the first thing that popped up when you Google my name,
Hmm.
and so he used it, and it stuck.
That's
And
awesome. That's
but
so
I love
cool.
it. It's catchy.
Yes.
Bruce Buffer says it's one of his favorite names to announce in the cage. And yeah, it kind of encompasses, it's something that people will remember if they're going to tune in to watch a
Yes.
karate fight, but then see that I have skill behind the name. It's a win-win for me. Uh,
Absolutely.
yeah, so I
I
fought
love that.
professionally for almost 18 years. When I first got into it, it was very hard to find fights. There was, not very many females in the industry. There were no girls in the UFC. They didn't have Invicta yet, which was an all-female fight organization. So I was just taking fights wherever and however I could. I was like a buck dripping wet, So I had to fight up all the time. I remember weighing
Oh,
in
wow.
with sweats and sweaters and quarters in my pockets, no weight cuts, just so that I can get fights. And so it's really cool to kind
That's
of
so badass.
it's
Just
cool.
candidly, sorry. That's so cool.
Yeah,
It's
the progression
amazing.
is cool for sure. Like going from not being able to have anybody to being able to fight for Invicta, become a champion of Invicta at atom weight, and then when they opened up the strawweight division in the UFC, which I had to jump up in weight, 115 pounds. Um, and being able to be in the biggest, best organization for MMA and kind of see that through and stay in the top 10 for as long as I was with that promotion. I had an amazing ride, 100%.
That is, oh my gosh. I literally have chills. I don't even know. Gosh, am I cut out for this interview? Am I good enough? This is so amazing. Oh my gosh.
Oh, I mean, we're
Okay,
coming
so
from the same cloth. It seems like you grew up doing martial arts as well.
yes, absolutely. No, I was totally joking. I am so thankful to be here. I'm so excited to dive into this more. Okay, so where do we even start from there? So, are you currently retired or are you still fighting?
I retired last year, and I mean, I
Okay.
wish I hadn't,
Oh,
but it's
yeah.
kind of bittersweet. Every time I watch fights, every time I'm commentating or doing some like the analyst work, get that knot in my stomach, and I wish I was in the cage versus on the outside of the
Oh,
cage.
wow.
But
Absolutely.
yeah, fighting is a young man's sport, and
Sure.
father time is ruthless, and there's just a point in a professional athlete's career where your body isn't doing what your mind wants it to do or is trying to tell
Mm.
it to do. And I mean, it's a very unfortunate story for a lot of professional athletes, like towards the end of their career, where it doesn't pan out the way you hoped and dreamed and wished it would. But towards the end, I was kind of just I was fighting with fire at that point. I had an amazing
Right.
career. I had to know when to fold them. I guess.
Right. Absolutely. That would be such an incredibly hard decision. And I'd love to know in present day, how are you able to kind of continue that past? And are you engaged in any training that you would like to share? Or we talked a little bit before this about how you help out with kids jujitsu, and yeah, what are some ways you're kind of carrying on your legacy now?
Well, once you're a martial artist, it's not a sport, right? It's a part of your life. You are being in martial arts is a lifestyle more so
It
than it.
is.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
I feel like it's always going to be a part of my life. And towards the end of my career, I decided to open up a jiu-jitsu school with my main professor, who I got my black belt from, Rafael de Fertitas. Um, and he's amazing. So we have a jiu-jitsu school out here in Albuquerque. And like you said, I work with the toddlers, I work with the kids, I work with everybody really. And so I've continued it in that way. But I also think that teaching is amazing, and it's a blessing, and it's cool to get to, you know, uh, to get a blank canvas and to see their evolution and their growth. It's really cool to kind of give back in that way, change people's
Yeah.
lives, because it was my coach that changed my life and inspired me to go out and be a fighter. Um, so in that way, it's cool, but it's not the same as competing for yourself. And I think that's kind of where I got into firearms. And my husband was like, "Let's do this," and it was very hard for me.
Right.
And I think that's what pulled me in, was that I sucked at it, and I was like, I got to get better at this.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Oh my goodness. So many places I want to go from here. First of all, I just want to say it is incredibly just beautiful and noble that someone at your level is working with children. And I can say this as someone who taught a kids jujitsu. No, not taught. I started a kids jujitsu program. The amount of patience it takes is pretty incredible, to teach something so complex, and like you also, as far as like helping kids apply that to everyday life, like it's hard to explain like this will help you defend yourself against bad people, and it's like it's a hard thing to do. And I had no business doing that as a blue belt in my, like when I was 22 or however old I was. But you really do have to kind of, gosh, they'll just have so much patience and really go back to the beginning. Like, what was it like for me to learn? And at least for me, it was a big point of reflection. And I think it's so wonderful that that's something you're doing to contribute. And how cool! Gosh, if I were a kid learning from you at that age, I'd be like, man, this is it. I've made it. So that's so lovely.
But they
Um,
don't know that, they don't even
yeah,
realize they don't know
right.
that, Professor was a UFC fighter. Half of them are
Legend.
like, yeah, they're like, "Oh my gosh, I saw you on TV," after I've been teaching them for years, and I'm like, "Bro, you don't know?" But to them, I'm just professor, just like my daughter. I'm over here trying to coach her, and I'm like, I'm a wrestle up, telling her. She's like, "Mom, I got it." And then she's listening to the blue belt coach, and I'm over here, I was on the biggest stage fighting for the UFC, and she doesn't want to take my advice, because to her, I'm mom.
Right. Oh my goodness. Okay, man, if you don't mind, I'd love to hear what it was like to balance starting a family in the middle of your career. If you're open to sharing that part, I think it's a really beautiful perspective to have. I remember Julie Golub, just a world-class shooter, came on, and we really didn't talk about her shooting career much. We talked about what it was like being a mom during all of that. And it was one of the most incredible conversations I've had on the podcast so far. And I think
Yeah,
it's a perspective that doesn't really get shared a lot. So if you don't mind, I'd love to
of
hear.
course. Well, I guess my mentality, like getting into a world that's pretty much dominated by male athletes, you have to have tough skin, and also it's kind of like everything else, right? You have to be initiated in, you have to be
Yeah.
welcomed in. And so when I got into fighting, my mentality was not to, like, I didn't want to get treated like a girl. I didn't want to get treated like a female athlete. Like, I wasn't trying to separate myself from the rest of my teammates. when I'm gonna step onto the mats to train, I'm training right alongside all the guys, alongside George St. Pierre, John Jones, Donald Cerrone, Keith Jardine, like all of these amazing champion legends. And I just wanted to earn my stripes. So that's kind of how I looked at it was, step in there, earn my stripes, and prove my worth. And so any of the things that they did, I did because I wanted to train right alongside them. And I think that mentality really kind of helped me stay grounded throughout my entire career because I didn't separate myself. I wasn't like, okay, I'm a female fighter, you got to treat me differently, da 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 da. No, like
Mm.
having the nickname Karate Hottie or whatever, it was a nickname, and people are like, oh, why did you choose to get into this when you could have done modeling and this or that? It was just because I loved martial arts. It's like, how come nobody ever asked George St. Pierre how come he didn't be a underwear model? Because he could have been. He's just loved
Right.
martial arts, and I
Right.
like, just because I'm a female doesn't mean I can't be a martial artist, and that's kind of just how I looked at it. I was like, it doesn't matter, male, female, green, blue, whatever. Like you love what you love. Um,
Yes.
so
I
that was
love that.
always my mentality for sure. And I really was scared when I got pregnant. I obviously, well, so my first fight was in '07, and I had to turn pro right away in MMA because there were no girls to fight in the amateur scene. I mean, I tell this to all my amateur fighters. I tell this to all my teammates that are getting into it. When you first get into it, you got to be ready to take whatever fight. It can't be like, oh, they missed weight, whatever. Like, if you want to, you got to rack up your wins and you got to take them as they come because when they come, they're far and few between, and the training that you put into getting a fight is no joke. So why would you let that train come and go? You got to be ready. You got to be ready to take advantage of the opportunities. The opportunities will come, but if you're
Right.
not ready for them, that's not the opportunity's fault. That's your fault
Right.
for not being prepared and ready to go when
Mm.
the opportunity
Mm.
presents itself.
Wow.
And so
Can you
I
ever be truly fully ready? Like,
no,
do
100.
you ever feel like, okay, I am 100% ready?
And no, you can't be ready, but you have to have the
Right.
mentality that you have to. I mean, you're never ready for anything, for
Right.
business, for babies, for anything. You're never ready for any of that stuff. But that's just kind of how you got to roll with the punches, right? Just like starting a
Mm.
podcast, you're never going to be ready, but
Never.
you gotta get going, right? And
Yes, exactly.
you kind of roll with the punches, and you adapt and you overcome as you go. And
I
so
love
that's
that.
kind of just how we perceived, my fight career. And so when I got pregnant, I just finished doing Bully Beatdown. Have you ever heard of Bully Beatdown?
I haven't. I was about to ask you to explain that. It sounds terrifying. Like, I almost was like, I don't know if I can. Okay, tell me.
They
What
need
is
to
it?
bring it back, is what I'm saying, but they need to do
Okay,
like
okay.
take down the troll. So Bully Beatdown basically was a show um, hosted by Mayhem. I don't know if you remember him as a fighter.
No.
And it was on MTV, which is probably
Okay.
in my time. How old are you?
I
I'm probably dating
listen.
myself.
I'm 27, but I
Okay.
do know MTV. My sister, 5 years older than me, was like a huge MTV fan, so we watched it together.
All right, cool. So
Yes.
basically, the premise of the show is they bring a victim, somebody that's been getting bullied, and they bring the bully, and the bully has to fight a professional fighter. And there's two rounds. The first round is all submission based. So it starts off with the bully starts off with $10,000. And the first round they have $5,000. Every time the professional fighter submits the bully, they lose $1,000.
Ooh.
So they're
Okay.
3 minute rounds, and the only honestly, it was it's a crazy concept, but it was awesome.
Yeah. Sounds so
They
fun.
we had to film it in like I think in Utah because that's the only place that would sanction
Really?
professional fighters to go against non-professional fighters. But I
Okay.
mean, it's more like a sparring session. It's not nothing
Yeah.
like so. Long story short, I submitted the girl 5 times. Second round is
Amazing.
is
That's amazing. Gosh.
stand up. So basically, if the bully gives up, within the 3 minutes, then they lose the rest of the $5,000. And so it's a really cool
Jeez.
concept. It's supposed to kind of humble the bully a little bit. And
Yeah.
definitely, I don't think it was scripted because, like, you can only get a bully like that is kind of full of themselves to think
Right.
that they can go against a professional fighter, you know?
How, okay, this is probably a stupid question. But it's my podcast, so screw it. The bully, is this
Yes.
a person that like committed a crime or something? Like picked on someone and they got submitted? Like, or is
Yeah,
this
well,
just
they,
someone who like offered themselves because they think they
well,
can do it?
they obviously have to, like, they're signing up for the show, you know what I
Right.
mean? So
Okay. Right.
they
Okay.
know that they're the heel, they're the bad guy in this scenario, but obviously
Okay.
they're getting on MTV, they get a
Yeah.
chance to win $10,000, and so they
Absolutely.
bring the victim and they bring the bully, and so they kind of tell this the story, like, man,
Yeah.
we work together and they're always bullying me, they're always belittling me, this or that. So it's just like all of these
Oh,
stories. So you basically tell the story of how the bully has been affecting the victim. So the
I
professional
got
fighter
you.
steps in for the victim.
This is so cool. I can't wait to watch this. I'm gonna do this after. Gosh, we'll have to highlight this clip and put some footage in there. What's it? I'm assuming yours is still televised to the point where we can
I have no
find
idea. I'm sure you
it.
can find it on YouTube.
Can't wait to
But
look. Okay.
I mean, it was pretty big at the time. But can you imagine them bringing it back now, especially with like all the keyboard warriors talking shit to like all
No.
the like professional fighters, athletes, anybody, influencers, whatnot,
Oh
like
my gosh. Should
because
I'm sorry, but like, is this something you should restart and like find people online who are like, find the bullies? I don't know. If you did this,
it would be
I'd be right there with you, man. This That's
it,
crazy. Okay, so you're saying you found out you were pregnant while you were signed up for this, or
well,
like,
I had already done the show and it was getting
okay,
ready to air. And so in my mind, that was going to be like the launching of my fight career because, it kind of just like solidifies you're a professional fighter.
yes,
You're on a show that so many people watch on a network that everybody knows
right.
and then I found out that I'm pregnant.
Oh my
And
goodness, wow.
and so it was very scary for me
Of
and
course.
but at the time my husband and I weren't married yet and it was kind of one of those things like I knew that we were going to be together forever, so
Right.
that
Yeah.
wasn't scary for me. It was just like the unknown of what was I going to do with my career? It
Right.
was already taboo for girls to be fighting, but now I'm a mom or I'm going to be a mom in this world and was I going to be accepted? Was I going to have the capacity to come back? There was just so many unknowns. And so I was very scared. I remember talking to bringing my coaches into the office and telling them that I was pregnant. And I was so nervous to tell them because I wasn't sure
Of
how they
course.
were going to perceive it or what they were going to think of me. And
Right.
they're all very supportive. But like the first thing they said, they were like, Peanut, that's amazing. You're going to be a
Oh, that's
mom.
awesome.
And they're
Good.
like,
Okay, I love to hear that.
you're still so young and you have such a career ahead of you and we're here with you every step of the way. And once they kind of reassured me that I could still do it, that's kind of all I needed to hear. And plus, with the support of my husband, he knew, all of the hopes and dreams that I had in the fight world, and he kind of was just like, once you have the baby, we'll figure it out. Like this, if this is what something you want to do, we'll figure it out. So we did, and I had my daughter, and both my husband and I were fighting. My husband was in the Air Force, and he actually boxed for the Air Force and
Oh my
had a good.
goodness.
He had a really good. He was starting his professional career when I got pregnant as well. And so, he continued it through my pregnancy. But once I had Araya, I think he, as a father, felt obligated to get a job that was more consistent than fighting was. And I mean,
Sure.
anybody that knows fighters knows that it's not consistent paycheck. And when you're first starting your career, it is a very, like I made more money waitressing at Hooters than I did probably the first 6 years of my MMA career. I still fought.
Really?
Yeah, I still fought. I still worked and fought professionally for probably the first, I want to say, good 7, 8 years of my career. Because
Oh
it's
my
just,
goodness.
it's not sustainable, you know.
Sure. Yeah. Oh
Uh,
my goodness.
but
That must
yeah,
have been
so
challenging to balance. I can't imagine.
yeah, we just you figure it out. You figure out how to
Right.
make it work.
I
And
love that.
at what you after I had Araya, I honestly, when I first had her, I had no interest in coming back to fighting. I was so enamored and like so in love with her and in love with being a mom and breastfeeding and
Hmm.
enjoying, taking care of her, watching her sleep, taking and just all the things that come with motherhood. And it was beautiful. I loved it. And I want to say probably after 3 or 4 months, I was like, so while all this was happening,
Hmm.
while I was growing sideways and in front of me,
Right, right, right.
um, there was so much action going on in the MMA world as it pertains to females in the sport. They just launched the an Invicta, which is an all-female fight organization, and there were all these
Right.
girls that I knew in my circuit that were getting signed to that promotion. They just opened up the 135 division in the UFC. All the while, I'm pregnant, and I was just like, people talk about postpartum depression, but I honestly was more
Mm,
depressed when I was pregnant because I couldn't do anything. You can't
I'm
you can't
sure.
spar, you can't
Mm,
you can't do any of that stuff, you know? And
right.
so I felt like my career was just getting further and further away from me.
Mm,
Um, and so yeah, I would say like a good 3 or 4 months afterwards, I was ready to get back in. And so here I am with my purse and my diaper bag and my gear bag and my car seat with my baby
I was about to say,
going
and the baby.
and the baby.
That's
Um,
amazing.
going into training and she'd sit in her car seat and sleep, and if I needed to
Oh,
feed her, I'd pick her up and take her to feed her, or if she started crying, one of my teammates would pick her up, one of the coaches would hold her while I was sparring,
so
and
cute.
we just made it work.
Oh, that's so cool. Oh, tell me this. When you got back into training and fighting after that, did it feel like you had a new drive and motivation being a mom?
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah.
When I first started fighting, I was just very passionate about it, and I had a lot
Mhm.
of there was a, it was just something very scary about stepping in. Because like naturally, I think I'm more of a fighter that a lover than I am a fighter.
Mm, mhm,
So to put myself in front of something that like scared the shit out of me,
mhm.
and to do it anyways, I think allowed me to grow as a person and gave me the confidence to kind of walk through life in a different way. And so that's why I did it. And it was something that was a passion of mine that made me feel like whole, right? But then when I had Araya, it was like it, fighting is a very dangerous sport. It's not
Mhm.
some and it's very it's very it's not consistent and it's not guaranteed. Nothing is guaranteed in fighting. Even if you have a multi-fight contract with somebody, you can get cut. Even on a win streak, you can get cut. It's
Mm,
just like a
yeah.
lot of things are out of your hands, and so
Right.
the mentality I had to have going into my fight career after having my daughter was I have to make it. Like
Right.
I have to make this a career where I can be proud of, where I can put food on the table, and it's not just something that I do with my free time. There is no
Right.
free time when you have
Right.
kids,
Right.
you know.
Fully consuming. I've heard and witnessed. Oh my goodness. Yes.
So like there was no free time when you have kids, and so it was like um if I was gonna do this, it was gonna be for something.
Right.
And so yeah, definitely changed my motivation, and I wanted to make something of myself because I had a daughter and a family to feed.
Right. Oh my goodness. That's so beautiful. Thank you so much for sharing this perspective. It's very unique in the sense that, in the realm of your professional career, but as far as being a mom and balancing something so challenging and high achieving. That is something that many can relate to. And hearing that from someone like you, who is so tough, like you're known for being just this total badass, and talk about women's empowerment. Like I know that's a buzzword, but you truly encompass that. And for you to go out and say, and be vulnerable enough to say, that you struggled with these things emotionally, mentally, during and returning, is just really inspiring, and very validating to many, including myself. Once I have kids, I'm 27, so I all my friends are between 27 and about 31 right now. So
Mhm.
we're all in that place of like, dude, I think I need to think about when I'm gonna have kids. Like, what are we gonna do? And I'm kind of getting there myself. I'm like, oh gosh, I want at least 3 years to like make sure the person I marry isn't an insane person. I need about a year after that to, like the numbers start adding up, and then I'm like, well, I'm scaling my career. And I think in general, it's a trope that many can relate to, especially with our culture nowadays, especially encouraging women to be their own person and do their own career thing and not rely on a man. And but yeah, gosh, I just love that you were able to share that. That's beautiful. And
Well,
you said that, oh, go ahead. Yes,
I
please.
was gonna say, like,
Please.
I am all about women's empowerment, but I'm also all about the family unit, right? And so if I were to have gone into, my fight career and had Araya and I'd be on my own, I 100% don't think I would have had as much success because I had the support of my husband. And I think what's more important is to find a partner that believes in you and that wants to grow with you. I mean, in all aspects, right? So anytime you're in a relationship, I think it's important to find somebody that you can grow with and scale with together, because sometimes you get in relationships and the person fa- the person falls in love with who you are at that moment, but as you continue to grow and evolve, they start to get uncomfortable, or like, hold on, this isn't what I signed up for, but actually it
Mm-hmm.
is.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not just to say that in, like, in a relationship that you decide to have kids with, but in any relationship in life, you should be friends with people that want to grow with you and not stay in the same spot, because that's what life is about. It's about growing with people and being and surrounding yourself with people that want to grow and want to become better and want to evolve. And I think that's really important too. And yes, I don't know how else to explain it other than when I became a mom, I realized so much. I realized how much mothers take on without any type of recognition. And
Mm.
it's because that's just what you do when you become a mother. And like you were saying, you weren't sure if you were ready, this or that. One of the best advice, one of our friends gave us is, you're never going to be ready. You can be, a multi-billion dollar, you can have a multi-billion dollar business and super successful, had already gotten your degree, this and that. And when you have a kid, you will not be ready. you know, Well,
Right.
and so it's like
Yeah.
we're talking about this in business. You're never going to be ready, but you have to take the leap. You have to bite down on
Yeah.
your mouthpiece and freaking go. Like, it is what it is. You have to trust in your instincts and trust that you're going to be able to pivot along the way and figure it out. And that's kind of what makes you, a powerhouse of whatever it is that you decide to endeavor in life, whether it's with your business, with your family, with your career, is just having the confidence in yourself and knowing that, when you do hit a wall or a bump in the road, that you can problem solve your way out of it.
Oof. I love that. Also, bite down on your mouth guard and just go. Did you just make that up?
I,
Did
I,
you make that up?
I think that's kind of been a motto of mine forever, is like, it's coming. Like, it's
Yeah.
coming whether you're ready or not. Like,
Right.
at least bite down on your mouthpiece so you don't get knocked out.
That was fantastic. Oh my God. I love that so much. I'm never going to forget that. That's like, there are some moments in podcasting which you'll soon learn. by the way, are you okay if we reference the fact that if we kind of tease that you're coming out with one, or do you want me to cut that?
Yeah,
I
that
don't
would be
want to.
great.
Okay. Okay,
Hmm.
great. Hell yeah, guys.
Hmm.
She's coming out with a podcast soon. Please check it out. Is it going to be you and your husband?
Yes, it is. It's gonna be.
Hell
I think
yeah.
we're gonna call it the Hottie and the Hammer because my husband's the
Stop
hammer
it.
in our relationship, and
I,
he's a general contractor now, so it plays off
oh,
of what he
I
does
love that
now.
so much. Yes. Okay. Beautiful. I'm so excited for you guys. What I was going to say is there are moments in podcasting uh, where I think I'll never be the same after this episode. Like this episode is like changing, it's like rewiring my brain a little bit. And this is one of those episodes. And that's not to
Oh,
say I haven't had incredible discourse with other individuals and that like, not every episode is amazing. That's not the case. I love all of the ones I've ever been able to produce, but there are some where I'm like, holy crap, like you just changed my brain. Like it's just so awesome. I love that. Um,
yeah.
gosh,
Yeah, so when we were
please go
talking
ahead.
when you're talking about like women's empowerment and stuff like that,
Yes.
I guess I say that to say like you find the right partner, right? Because
Yes.
if you find the right partner that loves the fact that you're like a strong female, that they're going to just be able to like amplify that and stand
Yes.
behind you, not stand behind you, really, stand next to you in those endeavors
Right.
because if you find the right partner, they're gonna love that about you, and
Yes.
you guys will go through life together
Yes.
in that way, where you guys can complement each other, and it's kind of like the yin and the yang. Like when I
Mm.
wasn't 100%, it was my husband. When I was going through my postpartum depression and stuff like that, it was my husband. When I was going through doubt, when I was like, I don't know if I could do this, I don't know if I could be a champ. It was my husband that was like, "You're a champ." When I
Yeah.
retired, and I was like, who am I if I'm not a fighter? And
Mm.
it was my husband that was like, you'll always be a fighter. Just because you're not fighting in the octagon anymore doesn't mean that you can't fight for anything else that you love and you're not passionate about in your life. And it was my husband that told me that,
Beautiful.
and same on his end, like when he is struggling, like it's like we pick up the pieces from each other. And so to me, that's like empowering. If you want to talk about women's empowering, it's like find the right partner that empowers you. You can't do anything in life alone. I've tried.
I love this conversation that has been the theme of this past year. Like I recently started a business with this isn't to like plug my business at all. It's just something I'm really just love that I've started. I feel really passionate about it. It's called Arsenal Marketing and Sales Collective, and we mostly help influencers and brands connect. So like on the influencer side, we help them establish their rates, we help them establish their audience. We help them on the financial legal side. We just started this whole thing, and I've always been one to like want to do everything myself, like every single responsibility, delegation in my life, all to me. And this is the year of like, I don't have to do it alone anymore. Like, I actually want to collaborate and work with people and move up with people. And I already do that in my friend and family life. Like, I so much rely on those intimate partnerships and relationships. And I don't know why I've been thinking like, why can't that be part of my career? And I've had a lot of, not to delve into my dating history here, but have had a lot of realizations this past year about partners. And I am someone who is constantly scaling every little facet of my life. And therefore the only constant is change. And I think
Yes.
because of that, I've felt really deterred to not be with someone because
Hmm.
I've been worried about like what it would mean for that relationship. And I love that you've said this because I'm looking forward to having the opportunity to find someone who wants to grow together, change together, and just ultimately do life together and
Hmm.
just gosh, like I really love this. This is super inspiring. And there is a lot in our culture nowadays. Tell me if you've maybe not seen this, but it's like encouraged for women to do it all alone, almost like whether it's to
Yeah.
prove, that you can do it alone or because nowadays, like the masculine, gosh, I don't want to, energy is just so different kind of thing. And so we're being encouraged left and right to be independent. And I think there's a lot of truth to that. There's a lot of encouragement to that when it comes from good intentions and everything. But I love that you're talking about the other side of this, that a good partner can be the difference between you, being alone through
Yes.
life's hardships and not. I freaking
Hmm.
love this. This is great.
Yeah, and like I promise you, you can't do it all by yourself because
Right.
it burns you out. Like,
Yeah.
I mean, just being a mother alone can burn you out. There's so many things that go into it, just the day to days. Having to wash the dishes, and I mean, that's the hardest thing for me is like the constant dishes piling up and laundry, especially when you're training 3, 4 times a day. It's like this,
Right.
the laundry is never ending, right? So, but then
Right. Yes.
add add everything onto that, and phew, forget it. Like who
Yes.
had like who you can't you will burn out, and
Yes.
I guess I feel like uh people have had um bad experiences with partners, and then they allow that to stain the rest of whatever they think of is supposed to be a relationship, like moving forward. But the truth is, like, if you get with somebody that doesn't want you to be strong and think independently and have like intelligent conversations, then girl, you picked the wrong one. Go
Right.
pick,
Right.
go pick somebody else. You gotta
Try
level up,
again.
like, yeah, try
Catch and
again. And it's just
release.
exactly like then he's not the one, or he's projecting, like, he wants you to be something that you're not,
Yes.
and don't settle, right? Like,
Right.
there's a book by Tim Grover. I can't think of the name. I think it's called Mind Gym. And
Mm.
he is he was Michael Jordan's sports psychologist.
Ooh.
And he kind of talks about Michael Jordan's mentality, um, as it pertained to him being a leader on the team. And
Mhm.
basically, it was like he gave his teammates a shot to like rise to the occasion. And if you didn't rise to the occasion, then he just wasn't going to pass you the ball again. And he just kind of held that standard, and it made everybody else rise to the occasion. Because if you basically you either go or you get left in the dust, right? And I think
Right.
it should be the same way in a relationship. It's like this is where I'm projecting to go. Like, I'm passing you the ball, so catch it and do something with it,
Right.
or I'm gonna pass it to a different teammate, right?
Silence for this mic drop moment. Oh my God. That was incredible. I love that. Yes. Oh, I love that. That was so good. Okay. Yes, absolutely.
100%, right?
I cannot wait to tell my besties about this. They're like, dude, go listen to this freaking interview. You're gonna shit your pants.
Good, good.
That's so awesome. Oh my gosh. Oh, I love that.
Yeah.
Yeah. And gosh, I'm very lucky right now in my life to have some of the most powerful it girl, kind, badass friends in the world. Lena Michelik's one of my besties. I've got one of my best friends is out in North Carolina, and she's literally the most goddess-like person inside and out. And she's a brown belt in jujitsu, testing for her black belt. And I've got another friend who's a occupational therapy doctor, and she's a USPSA competitor. And they're just such high achieving and kind women. And I I don't think I'll ever, like, don't get me wrong, they are with partners that are beautiful and solid for them. But I remember when I hadn't met their partners yet, right? And I was getting to know them, I was like, there's no way there's a man out there that, like, you know,
Yeah.
can deal with this, right?
Yes.
And no, they have incredible partners. But a common theme, like, just because we're on this topic, not only with them, but other really wonderful people in my life, is like the a lot of people internalize, especially if you're successful and you want just the most out of life. If someone else doesn't have that same drive and they don't feel like they have that same capability, it can cause contention. And, like, just like you said, that ball might have to be passed. And
Hmm.
um it's such a painful reality when you see the potential in someone. And, like, not to get into relationship too deep here, but it's when you're someone who sees the potential of life and you see that within yourself, but your partner doesn't have that. It's like that dissonance is just like can
Yeah.
just be that termination sentence, just
Yeah.
terminating sentence for the relationship. And gosh, I love that you're inspiring people to um to pass the ball to the right person. And if they don't grab it, that's okay. You can get it back and pass it along. I love that. Gosh, that's beautiful. If you don't mind sharing, what are your podcast goals? Like, what made you want to start that, and what conversations did you and your husband have? And what's his name, by the way? All I can think of is Hammer now. I'm sorry.
It's the hammer. No.
He's the Hammer.
His name is Joshua. And
Joshua. Okay.
yeah, I think just, it's going to be both of us on the podcast. And I think just when people meet us, they have a lot of questions and they're like, man, you guys are awesome. You guys really lean on each other. And, we have our daughter and we have so many cool stories of just wearing different hats, right? Because when we first got together, we were just boyfriend and girlfriend going after our dreams. And then we had our daughter and then we became husband and wife. And then it got to a place where he was managing and negotiating my fight purses and sponsorships. And so then he had to wear a different hat there, right? He had to be manager, and then he's been in my corner. So then that now he takes on a different hat of being my coach and just having to kind of navigate those different hats, which can be really difficult too. Like when you're in a relationship, all you see them as is your partner, So for a long time, I couldn't take direction from him because I was like, no, you're not gonna tell me what to do. You're my husband, you're not my coach. And he'd be like, well, fuck it. I'll just tell Coach Jackson or Coach Wink, and then you'll listen to them. You won't listen to me, So we had to navigate our way through that. And so I think we have so many cool, life stories and lessons that, if we can share on a podcast. And then, just throughout my fight career and my journey and himself, I think we've just met so many cool people that we could pull onto the podcast and kind of talk stories and tell cool different things. And it's just, there's so many layers, right? I'm not just a fighter. I'm a mother, a businesswoman. My husband's the same thing, military. Now he's a businessman. We own multiple businesses and we're parents. And so I just think that sky's the limit. And if we can just share a little bit of our journey, and if anybody is willing and wanting to listen, I think it would be kind of cool to open that up to the world to listen.
If this episode has not shown you how incredible of a motivational speaker you are and how great you are at storytelling, then I don't know what will. You have to start this podcast. I'm so excited for you. And you've got the best setup. We FaceTime before this, per usual. We had some technical difficulties, as podcasts do. Speaking of, always buffer in 15, 30 minutes.
Oh my gosh.
Oh my gosh. But yeah, your setup is awesome. I can't wait. This episode will come out actually next week, but I'll have all of your information linked in the show notes for people who want to kind of stay tuned and check that out. Add to your already, impressive following and reach. That's just going to be so fun. I cannot wait. I'm going to turn on my notifications and follow because I won't want to miss one. I'm so excited. I need to listen to something other than true crime, at some point.
Oh my gosh. I love true crime. Do you listen to the, my favorite true crime podcast is Sword and Scale. Have you heard of that one?
I have heard of them, but I haven't. Mm-hmm. They're particularly dark, right? They go into some pretty graphic detail. Is that what sets them apart?
Probably.
I feel like I've heard that a few times. Like they don't really hold back, is what I've heard.
What's interesting about how he kind of takes you through all the different crimes is that he includes 911 calls. He includes interviews. He includes court documents. He sometimes if he can, he'll interview the victims or people that are involved in it. And so it kind of really you're really immersed into the story as it's kind of happening.
Yeah.
So
sounds
I
like
that.
It. Mm-hmm. That's so cool. I love that. I will have to check them out because I will say the 3 podcasts I listen to that are true crime. I know that's kind of alarming, but it is what it is. One is called My Favorite Murder. There are 2 comedians out of California. Another is called Sinisterhood. It's a psychologist and lawyer based out of Texas. And then there's a hairstylist and autopsy tech, let that one set in, based out of Boston, Massachusetts. So I think those 3 perspectives spread out is such an interesting thing to have, and they all have their different types of humor. They're all incredibly respectful to the, of course, victims in these stories,
Hmm.
but they tend to leave out too graphic of details. Like the more I listen, the more I realize they're kind of, I think, cutting back on that. Like they don't typically include 911 calls. They'll just report kind of what was said.
Yeah.
But I like this idea of like a full immersion into the story. That's really cool.
Yeah. And I don't, I heard a comedian talk about this one time. They're like, so your pastime is like listening to like true crime? That's kind of like worrisome that like you like, I don't
You're
know
like
what it
falling
is,
asleep to it.
but
Yeah.
it does kind of make me paranoid every now. Like it, it, it heightens your, it can make you too paranoid to where it's like, I mean,
Yes.
obviously I think everybody should have like a healthy like sense of like situational awareness and stuff.
Yes, of
And
course.
that's something that I really harp on when I'm teaching my self-defense classes and stuff like that.
Yes. Love
Uh,
that.
but it can take you to a place where you're like always in the red, where it's that's not a good place to be, you know.
Yes, absolutely. I have gone through periods where I've taken breaks because I've realized I'm feeling pessimistic and like super low energy, like low vibrational energy kind of thing. Um, yeah, and I've realized, I'm gonna listen to this like self-help book, like I'm gonna read The
Hmm.
Confidence Gap right now instead of listen to this true crime episode, even though I really want to. So yeah, I'm glad you brought that up because I think that's a very valid and like shared experience among true crime listeners. Like it can really put you there. It also just makes me so paranoid for my sisters, like because they don't carry, I carry every single day. If I take my trash out, I've got a gun on me. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? And I've also got a push dagger, and I keep up my striking and grappling skills. Like I am, oh, I'm always ready. You know what I mean? Like I'm gonna
Right.
put up a good fight, but I worry about my sisters all the time. So
Yeah. Well,
I'm
the
sure you feel that.
reality is, the reality is 90% of women out there, maybe even more, 95% of the women are more like your sisters and just like my sisters. My sister travels alone a lot. She's a paralegal assistant and she travels alone quite a
Ooh,
bit. And then she's
I see.
single, so she travels to like for vacation all her own. And I'm always worried about her. But the reality is, probably 90% of them don't have any day-to-day training just in jujitsu, any type of self-defense, let alone weapons. And
Yes.
so I think anytime I get a group of girls that come in, my biggest thing is situational awareness because you can avoid a lot of issues just by having good situational awareness, and then you don't even
Yes.
ever have to be in a place where you know you gotta mess around and find out.
Right.
You know?
Absolutely. I'm actually so glad we are pivoting here a little bit because I know between your content and freaking starting a school for this, I know that it's very obvious through your actions that this is a passion to you. And you also, again, buzzword here, but it's very true, very applicable, empowering to other women to look into martial arts, like just to become curious about it. Like through exposure alone, there's so much power there. So, um, when you are faced with a woman, and I'm sure you get I mean, tell me if I'm wrong. I'm sure you get that question all the time, like, where should I start, right, to
Hmm.
become more prepared? What is your typical answer for that, if you don't mind me asking?
I tell them to start with situational awareness. I mean, that's basically all the girls that they come in. They're like they don't know what to do. They don't, they're scared. Their daughters are going off to college.
Mhm.
But like when I bring them into my class for a seminar or something, and there's just you're really just scratching the tip of the iceberg at that point.
Yeah.
And this is kind of how I explain it to them. Like, look, I've been doing martial arts since I was 10. I'm 40 now. So I've been fighting as a professional athlete for over 18 years. I trained 3 to 4 times a day, and I'm stepping into the cage against somebody that's my own size. And even when I step into the cage, even though I have a game plan, and even though there's time limits, and even though there's a ref, I still mess up, and I still get hit, and I still get hurt. So now put yourself in a place where the odds are stacked against you, where you're in the car by yourself and it's late at night and you're at a gas station and it's not just one guy, it's two guys and they're both twice your size and they have weapons, And so, and I say that to, and not to scare them, but
Right.
to put things in the context of reality. Because a
Yes.
guy isn't going to attack you if he thinks that you can defend yourself. He's going to attack you because he
Yes.
thinks you're vulnerable. He thinks that he can take advantage of you or whatever he's trying to do, or a girl or whatever. Like
Right.
they, they have a trained eye to find people that they think that they can take advantage of. And so if you even just work on your body confidence and how you walk into a room, and how you decide to, to walk through life, and how you decide to see the world, not in the red, but in the yellow. I mean, I'm saying red, it goes like, right, yellow, orange,
Yes.
red, black, like, oh,
Right.
deer in
Right.
headlights, you're freaking blacked out. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah.
So
Sorry.
I've been saying
Sorry.
all those colors to say that, like, they're
Yeah.
just like different levels of awareness, right?
Yes.
So a lot of times, if you're, sorry, if that was my daughter, sorry.
Oh, you're totally fine. Yeah. Do what you need to do.
If you're walking through life with your head buried in your phone, and just like swiping through TikTok as you're waiting for, your kids at the grocery store, you know if you don't think it's a big deal, Araya, you gotta stop sending me stuff, it's pinging my phone. um
That's so funny.
she's,
She's on a doom scroll and she's like, aha,
she just
hilarious. I'm gonna
she just got, like, it's her birthday, so she just got an Amazon gift card. So she's like going window shopping and sending me
There
all
you
these
go. There you
links.
go.
But yeah, so like all these little things that I don't think people really think about when you go into a place that you're not familiar with. Do you see the exits when you're parked? Are you parked under a street light? Like when you pull over, like what time of the
Yes.
day do you get your gas? Like all these little things. And so if you want to talk about practice, those are things you can practice on a daily basis. You don't have to get into a gym outfit to practice situational awareness. So like when you go into your car, like, are you practicing locking your door as soon as you get in? When you're walking to your car, what do you have in your hands? Do you have your keys in your hands? Is your phone in your hands? Are you looking at your phone? Do you have your finger on, the button where you could do an SOS? Like, these are things that you can practice every day. When you go into a restaurant, where are you sitting where you can see somebody entering and exiting? When you step into an elevator, where are you standing in the elevator where you can exit quickly and safely? These are things that you can practice without having to get it, like, without having to get sweaty, without having to do any of those things, and that they'll save your life.
Oh my gosh. I'm so glad we talked about this. This is so beautiful. Yes, and I love how you defined situational awareness. I feel like it is like a buzzword. It's talked about a lot. It's just said, without much defining and much explaining.
Yeah, because this is what I try to tell them.
Yes.
This is what I try to tell them is,
Yes.
when, like, obviously we teach them physical stuff, like how to get out, and also too, for me, like, this is something that I had to, like, wrap my head around too, like, teaching situational awareness, because I've been fighting for so long. My initial instinct would be to close the distance, take them down, and do something about it, right? Because that's
Right.
just what I've been trained to do for, more years of my life than I have not been trained to do. But that's not always the safest thing to do either. The
Right.
safest thing to do is get away.
Right.
Get away so that I can come home to my family and live to see another day, right? And so even just having to wrap my brain around that, because sometimes these girls will come in like, I want to beat this guy up. It's like, no, girl, it's a fight. It's a
Right.
fight, and it's probably not a fight you want to be in, like,
Right.
especially if you're not ready for that cardio. You know what I
Right.
mean?
Yes. Oh my God.
And then,
Yes.
and not only the cardio, but the adrenaline dump. And there's just so
Yes.
many things that you never know that. But what I will do to my students when we do a self-defense class is I will take them to the black. I will take them to the point where they're so scared for their lives and they can't think, because you need to feel that, and you need to know that that's your wall, that's your limit. Okay, so now that you have that wall and you have that limit, let's take you there again and see if you could push past that wall and that limit over and over again. And my hope is that when I take these girls into the seminars, that they realize that it is the tip of the iceberg, and that they have to, if they're really serious about it, implement training in their everyday lives to where it becomes something that is like muscle memory, because you're always going to revert back to what you know. And so you're going to hit a point where you get to the black, and the only thing you're going to be able to do is react to what you know. So
Right.
if what you know is to freeze, that's what you're going to do. in those very dangerous situations. But if what you know is to at least kick away and create space and run, if what you know is to at least draw attention to yourself, then that's what you're going to do. And so you have to understand that every time you go into training, you're pushing that wall further and further so that you have more time to make critical decisions.
Yes, I love that. Yes, that's a great metric to introduce to situational awareness. It gives you time. And something I really love about ShivWorks, I don't know if you've heard of ECQC, Extreme Close Quarter Concepts. Craig Douglas kind of articulates distance in the sense of time, right? Like when we create distance where we give ourselves that time. So that I just love that you brought that up. That's such a great point that I don't really think has been said on the podcast quite yet. And also, I have like friends and like my sisters will get so mad. They'll be like, man, I just want to like punch that person. And I'm like, right. But that starts a fight. And if you've never been clocked in the face, don't do it. Like I have this theory, and it's a really silly one. It's not really one I'm like going to stand by logically too much, but I do think it's healthy to know what it feels like to get punched in the face. It's like a very sobering thing to know what it's like to feel that like flush of like a loss of dignity of like, oh my God, I just got hit in the face. Like I didn't block that. Like they made contact with me and I didn't do the things that I needed to do to prevent this from happening, especially when it's repetitive and the same person and the same little like sparring, time. And that gave me so much, like it humbled me so fast. Like I remember when I did my traditional martial arts and I got my black belt and then I went into Muay Thai. I was so humbled. I was like, I never want to get in a fight. Like that is the one thing, like I will avoid to the max, to the point where like, I look like a weirdo when I'm walking in public because I'm looking at every single person. I'm even making eye contact. I'm controlling like exactly what my face is doing to give them the impression I need them to have, especially if it's at night and I'm alone and, I'm carrying a gun kind of thing, which is always, but like once you like know that level and you have been in the black, I think it's an incredibly healthy thing to experience. It really puts into perspective all the other shades, all the other colors.
100%. And I mean, so like my daughter grew up in the gym, she's a gym baby. And so she's kind of been desensitized to violence, to the point where it kind of scared me, right? Like we'd be doing these just self-defense classes and she wasn't taking it seriously and she's laughing. She's like, oh, I'll just do this Karate Kid move and and so I had to snatch her up. I snatched her up, I pulled her in and I put her in a chokehold and I picked her up and it scared her. And she was like, you're my mom, what are you doing? And I was like, Araya, this is serious. You're little, you're a girl, and if a guy wanted to take you, he would. Pay attention. And I had to like snap it into her because I'm not always going to be around her. Right. And so and it's because like, she's, like I said, she grew up in it. Like I came home black eye. She's like, oh, who gave that to you? It wasn't nothing like weird to her that I would come home with black eyes, broken noses and all this stuff. It was just like, it was the norm to her to see that from mommy. Right. And so like all of these little things. And it's just like you don't know until you know. Like you can puff your chest and say you're big and bad and that you're tough and that you can handle yourself, but really, can you handle yourself?
This episode of She Shield is brought to you by Right to Bear. You've probably heard me say that self-defense is more than simply carrying a firearm. It's awareness, avoidance, and preparation for anything that is to come your way. And that's why I'm partnering with Right to Bear. They stand by defenders like you and me. You'll receive benefits like expert witness support, psychological care, gun replacement, and even protection for other lawful self-defense tools like pepper spray, knives, and even your hands and feet if you have to use them in a struggle. What sets Right to Bear apart is that they are dedicated to education and immediate legal response. In case you do ever have to protect yourself, you have access to a 24/7 attorney-answered emergency hotline so that you are never alone. What I love most, though, has to be the personal connection that Right to Bear will have with you as a member. For example, Frank the president of Right to Bear, will give you a personal phone call when he hears about a claim being filed. That level of care in the industry is extremely rare. If you carry, train, and believe in thinking ahead to protect yourself and your family, consider getting a membership with Right to Bear. If you use my code FIT4FIA10, you will get 10% off your membership, and the link to access this and to learn more is located in the show notes of this episode, which are the notes below the title. Protecting yourself and your family should not leave you defenseless afterwards. Stay safe and stay vigilant with Right to Bear.
I mean, it broke my heart to do that to her, you know, to see, because I'm her mom. I'm supposed to be maternal, and and she knows that I'm the one that protects her, right? But at the same time, it's like there are certain things that you know, I have to show her versus tell her, because she's not going to get it unless, right? Because even when I'm training her jujitsu, sometimes, like, you know, I want her to work and this and that, but I don't always let her win, you know? And, you know, so just to kind of give her the reality of it, you know, I'd rather it come from me in a safe place, in a safe space where we can kind of digest it afterwards and talk about it, versus it come from somebody else that she doesn't know, she doesn't trust, that can take advantage of her, this and that, and all those things. You know, that I'm, you know, keeping my fingers crossed that I'm making those right decisions, but I think I am. And I think sometimes you have to, in those scenarios, you kind of have to learn the hard way.
Absolutely. Oh, gosh. I love that you're sharing this perspective. It is my dream to put my kids, I'm sorry, let me just say it this way. I will be putting my kids in combative sports, like jiu-jitsu, hopefully at a gym where there's some striking as well. And then we can, like, together apply that into palms, whatever we need to do, unless they're training their knuckles, which they may be. But gosh, it is really hard to, I would really imagine it would be hard to instill that drive and goal into a kid who hasn't seen, like, the world and, like, the make of the world. I don't share this a lot on my podcasts. I think I've maybe told this story a few times, but my original interest in martial arts came from a family member being physical with me as a child. And this family member is in my life now, which has been a very long journey. But it was originally, and you know, that only is allowed now because of accountability that was taken, apologies that were accepted, a lot of that, and boundaries being put into place. So let me be very clear, but lots of therapy too. But I saw from a very young age what people were capable of. And I think, I feel like I'm just connecting this now somehow. I don't know. Maybe I've just articulated it in a way that I feel like is connecting the dots for me. But I could see where, like, if I didn't have that experience as a kid, yeah, getting hit in the face, not fun. Don't want to do that. Why would you want to do that? But to me, learning how to take a hit to the face and stay in the fight was so important, because I was like, there are people out there. Like, if this person who was close to me and was supposed to protect me and love me could hurt me, then imagine a stranger with motivations beyond what I could imagine, whether that be desperation for money or food, all the way to just a psychopathy, you know? Right. And that really gave me an exposure to the world. And I think, I think I went into medicine for a bit. I went to medical school. I thought I was going to be a doctor, had planned fully, but I felt like I'd honestly been given this chance to, like, expose the importance of preparedness in the self-defense realm to people, especially women. That's obviously very important to me, hence She Shield. But that's going to be hard to explain to my kids, because they're not going to have anyone in their lives, or they'll be dead, you know, that would ever bring them the pain that I was, inflicted upon me as a kid. And gosh, I haven't even thought about that. Like, what if they don't want to do jujitsu? What if they don't care? You know, like, if kids aren't interested, I mean, it's kind of hard.
Yeah, like I said, you don't got a choice, baby girl. You don't got a choice. But yes. and that is also one thing that I bring up in the self-defense seminars that I do is, obviously, kind of understanding your surroundings, this and that. But the truth is, a lot of times when you are found in a situation where you're going to get taken advantage of or hurt, a lot of times it's from people that you know and love. you know? And so that's like a hard reality too that you kind of have to swallow and understand. And then like, how do you navigate that? And it's like, because we talk about the different levels of awareness, and you should be able to drop your shields around the people that you love and you trust. And so it's upon you to create that space for yourself, and to be able to clock when you're not in a safe place with somebody that you love, and
Mm.
to remedy that. And sometimes the relationship is worth, going through that, but you have to 100% make sure that it's a two-way street, and that when like you said, when you talk to them, that they have that sense of accountability, and that you've worked through it, they understand the boundaries, and that the relationship is worth being kept in your life. And I think it's easier said than done, but I
Right.
think that's where, when it is done, that's where you pull strength from.
Absolutely. I love that. Yeah.
So I'm
This is a
glad that you
beautiful
did.
perspective.
I'm glad
Thank
that you
you.
did, and I'm glad that,
Appreciate that.
because I think the problem that a lot of women have is that they're taught to be submissive, and they're
Yes.
taught not to say anything, and the reason why they're taught that is because they don't want to get found out.
Yes.
You know what I mean? And so to be
Yes.
able to call that out,
Mm.
and be like, no, I'm not fucking crazy.
Right.
I know what I feel, and you're
Yes.
making me feel uncomfortable. And that's not my fault.
Absolutely.
That's your fault. You
Oh
know?
my
And
goodness. Yes.
so
Yes.
so much more than just like the physical training. It's how do you
Yes.
stand on your own 2 feet, and have the confidence to call it out for what it is. And I tell my daughter
Mm.
this all the time. I said, you always, even if mommy's not there, you have a voice, and if
Mm.
you're scared, and if
Yeah.
you're or if you're afraid, say it anyways. Say it
Yeah.
through your tears, because it's at least you put it out there, like, because
Oh,
if you don't say anything, then it's never nobody ever knows.
that
I've
is
had so many,
so beautiful.
yeah, I've had so many awkward conversations that I never wanted to have, but I knew that they had to be had, and so I would have those conversations through tears, because I knew they had to.
Mm.
I knew the words needed to be said.
Absolutely, man. That vulnerability is courage. Like, if anyone's done the research to prove that, Brene Brown, look her up. It's the truth. Oh my gosh. I love that. Ooh, yeah. That theme of women gaslighting themselves when there is a dangerous situation, a potential, an unknown, right? That feels off and could turn into a potentially dangerous situation is so real. And as someone who lives and breathes, preparedness and training, and from everything from my hands to blades to firearms, pepper spray to whatever, I constantly still to this day am like fine tuning, like getting this. Oh gosh, I don't know. I'm not articulating this very well because I don't think I've ever really said it, but I feel like I'm training my mind to listen to my gut, because oftentimes I forget where I've read this. It's been like studied. So this isn't like a subjective, truth. Like intuition oftentimes out uh, what is disproportionate to reality, or sorry, no, to logic, excuse me. So let me back up. Your gut could be saying run, and you can out logic your gut. Like we have
Mhm.
the ability to say, well, that person might be cutting an apple. If they're walking towards me with that knife, they may not be coming at me to stab me, like
Just gotta give a bit of the doubt.
exactly. Like our brains can do some crazy stuff to prevent having to live in the full reality of something, because we don't want discomfort. We
Hmm.
always want to be at our lowest level of energy, our most comfortable, and we will do things to make us feel that. But the reality is we end up either allowing someone to get too close to talk their way into our space. That's a big thing people do, like predators do. They'll talk their way into your space to get closer to you, right? To put a hand on you and control you somehow. Or like we'll stay in a situation to the point where
Longer.
it gets harder and harder to leave. Oh my gosh. Like the amount of times one of my best friends is out in North Carolina. I mentioned her earlier. She's the brown belt. She's about 6 feet tall and I'm 5'10". And so we're not small women, dude. Like listen, when I date,
Amazons.
listen, that's what I'm saying. Like when we go out on the town, we usually wear like 2-inch heels. We both got blades, guns, like we're strapped, you know. With that said, sorry, we've had so many experiences when people have come up to us and been like, "You guys know you're tall, right?" And we're like, "Yeah, yeah, yeah." Anyway, with that said, we're not easy women to like pick up, or maybe like I wouldn't think that a dude would see me and be like, her, you know? Because like
Taking
I'm not
her.
walking around with some muscle. That's what I'm saying. And so, but so with that said, when I do get approached and when I do find myself in a situation where I feel uncomfortable, something's off, it's just not right to stay, I talk myself out of it all the time. And I've done some serious applied scenario training multiple times. Like I've gone back to the same training event where you're out in the desert basically for 3 days just doing scenario on scenario, and like I still to this day like will talk myself out of something, and I'll call Eliza, you know, and I'll be like, dude, tell me if I'm wrong, but like, was this effed up? Like, should I have left sooner? And, you know, she's always really good to be like, first of all, take the shame out of it. Should doesn't exist
Hmm.
here. Like, you have hindsight, so it's different. Like, you
Hmm.
did what you thought was best with the information you had, whatever. But what you said is so freaking true. Like, you have to trust what you're feeling. And then your voice is a tool to like potentially save yourself from ever having to get physical. And gosh,
100%. Yeah,
ugh,
100%. But also, Sophia, like what you're saying
yes.
is like I experience that a lot when I do my women's self defense classes, because we'll sit down and we kind of talk about, and like if and I open up the floor if there's any ladies that have stories or anything like that, and a lot of them carry guilt for, not making the right decision, and I just look at them like, bro, what do you mean? Because you're sitting right here in front of me having this conversation. That was the decision you made at that time and it got you home. So
Right.
like I always tell them, like they're like, should I done this? Should I done that? Like I'm like, my Josh calls it like you could quarterback Monday like all day, right? So it's like you can,
Interesting. I like that.
and it's the same with fights too. Is right. I'm like, man, I should have done this. I should have done that. I mean, in a fight, like I definitely will go home to live another day. But like it is what it is, and it happened how it was supposed to happen, and you shouldn't carry guilt or anything as long as you came home. And so that's kind of how I look at it, like when I talk to the girls about situations that they've been in, and all I tell them is like, so like you have to be able to use those experiences that you had to inform future decisions that you make.
Ugh, I love that.
Just to
That's so
carry
true.
the guilt, then it's like extra baggage that is
Yes.
unnecessary, you know?
Yes. Shame is the antithesis to growth. I truly believe that. Like
Hmm.
when you focus on the shame and the feeling of shame, which is just in my opinion, the worst feeling in the world, and not look at it for what it is and be able to make better decisions going forward. I absolutely agree with you. I think that's where a lot of people get stuck. And I'm really glad you're there to guide them, to direct them, be that little GPS to be like, no, 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 like we're
Hmm.
moving this way with this new information.
Hmm.
Gosh, how lovely. That's so cool. And I know you'll continue to teach your daughter that, and she'll go on to be an amazing friend who teach more women that. I mean, it's just, I love this.
Yeah,
This is the spreading of ideas that I wanted this podcast to have. So I love this. And if you're listening and you're resonating with this, you're not alone. We're pretty much
100%.
all have that built in. As women, we have
It,
shame like built in. It's an
well, what you were saying earlier as far as intuition, we have that built in as well. Like our females are built differently than males are, and females have a higher sense of intuition for that exact reason.
yes.
Because we don't have the muscles and the different type of endurance that males do. And I think what's
Yes.
just happened over the years is that we've just become so disconnected from our bodies, and
Yes.
we've been trained to not listen to that intuition. And so that's
Yes.
another thing that you can train without having to go to the gym. You can listen to that intuition. And here's the thing, like, say your intuition was wrong. So is like, how is that a lose? Like, to me, that's like, if
Right.
I'm like, if I see somebody that I think is off and I'm like, excuse me, even if I like say something that can come off as rude, like, I'm sorry, I feel like you're a little too close to me. And
Yep.
then and then they actually were like, we weren't trying to do nothing. They were looking at something like in the aisle or something like that. Then whatever. But at least I had
Right.
like the wherewithal to say it, to make myself feel comfortable in that moment. And you could even go back and be like, oh my gosh, I'm sorry. I totally thought you were invading my space. you
Sure.
know? But
Absolutely.
not even feeling like you have to apologize. Like there was this group of girls that I had taught, and one of the girls' mom came up to me and told me a story after the seminar, and they were at a grocery store, and this guy could have had good intentions, you know. They were just having a conversation, and he was like, "Oh, really? That's interesting. What school do you go to?" And she didn't feel comfortable indulging that information, and she couldn't
Of course.
think like off the fly, so she was like, she goes, I don't know. And he was like, what do you mean you don't know what school you go to? And she was like, I don't know. And then, because she didn't want to share that information,
Very
and
good.
she couldn't come up with an answer, but that was her answer. And then they kind of
Yes.
just tried to change the subject. And when they walked off, her mom was like, good for you, baby. You didn't feel comfortable telling him. It wasn't,
Absolutely.
it wasn't like a smooth, like,
Right.
like
Right.
answer,
Sure.
but
Didn't
you
have to be
didn't give him the
smooth.
answer. You didn't give him the answer that
Boom.
you thought he was fishing for.
I
You know
love
what I'm
it.
saying? It wasn't
Yes.
the smoothest thing. It's just like my coaches always tell me in fights, because I used to be, I mean, I come from a karate background. We do like katas, and everything has to be perfect. And,
Yes.
you have to snap your punches, and the sequence has to be one, two, three. And I carried that into fighting, thinking that the fight should go exactly as planned, as we set out to. And I remember telling him, like,
Interesting.
the game plan isn't falling into place. And he goes, Peanut, it's a fight. It's not going to be the game plan. The other person on the other side of the cage from you isn't in on your game plan. It's messy,
Uh,
and it's going to be messy, and you have to accept that it's messy.
oh my goodness. Oh my gosh. Yeah, I love that so much. I love that so much. I have a question for you. I don't think I've ever asked anyone this, but it's on my mind a lot. And like, okay, so let me preface with Shivworks. So they do close quarter combatives. They do like retention shooting with your gun in really close, everything from that to weapons entanglement, weapons access, retention, right? And the first night they have you fly in, and it's all these, sometimes it's these like Delta Force guys, right? And these like police officers. And then like I'm there like, hello, I'm a civilian. And the first night is always managing unknown contacts, which is their kind of curriculum around situational awareness, managing space, how to move around someone while you're talking to create distance and to see your surroundings, right? It's an incredible, incredible weekend experience. But before you ever touch a gun, before you ever get an entanglement, it's all about managing distance and verbalizing space, right? So ask, tell, make, the spectrum. With that said, one of the things Craig teaches is an eye jab, as well as, what's his other one? An eye jab. He talks about pepper spray, the use of non-lethals, and essentially preemptive striking, right? But not initiating a fight. Like at this point, you've told someone, ask them at least to stay out of your space. They've not respected the ask. They've moved into the space. So it's kind of like a distance creator. And of course, pepper spray is that like 10-foot eye jab. You can create a little bit more space from further away. With all that said, if you were like personally in a situation, self-defense wise, and someone was getting into your space, would you like preemptively clock their shit? Like, is that something that you is that something that you would do because you're like, and at this point, your intuition is keyed in, and like I'm sure you at this point you know where you're at, even with some self-doubt as we have as humans. Like, would you ever just like do that to be like, prevent the fight
No.
from really happening? No.
Well, I guess I guess it's kind of hard for me to answer, because I think it just whatever the situation would call for is what I kind of would decide in that moment.
Of course, so dependent on so many little, yeah, of course.
But
Yeah.
what I teach my girls is like right, the foundation, and if you understand concepts, there's concepts that flow through every martial arts. There's concepts that flow through every type of like tactical training that you can do, right? And it's like the first concept is like having a good stance and having a good foundation. And so, like, if ever I feel like I'm in a situation where it could get a little murky, I think the first thing I would do is get into a good stance, but
Right.
not in a way where I'm like, fight me,
Right.
like
Absolutely. Yes.
I would
Yes.
just take a step back, make sure that my stance was bladed. I would kind of, if I did have a weapon on me, I would make sure that it was away from the the threat. You know what I mean? And I always put my hands up. So like if I'm having a conversation with them, I wouldn't be like full on like fighting stance. It'd be like, "Hey, I'm sorry. Are you lost?" Or my hands would be here right away already.
Absolutely.
And we even tell them like, "Hey, I'm sorry." Like even put your hands like so that it is not like a combative where I don't turn it into a combative situation where I'm like, what, you want some? Where I'm not doing that whole thing.
Right.
My hands are
Right.
just here like, hey, I'm sorry, you're really making me feel uncomfortable. Would you mind please giving me some space? My hands are here doing that,
Right.
And then even further, bringing them
Mhm.
out, right? Because if my hands are here, I'm allowing them to invade my space up to this point. And so I'm always teaching my girls to keep my hands out here because
Okay.
now this is where they have to get to before they can get to this, right? And
Right.
so I think my initial reaction would be to create space here
Right.
because then they would have to be able to get past my guard first. So I don't think I would
Right.
necessarily punch somebody or like initiate action. I think I would
Yes.
create space and hands out enough to shove them away
Right.
so that I can, again, give myself some time.
Absolutely. And this is my bad. I did not set up the question very well. I kind of meant so on the ask, tell, make spectrum, right? You first ask them to step back. They don't. They continue to pursue your space. Say that
Mm-hmm.
you're past the ask and you're in the tell, and we're moving on to make, right? We're moving
Mm-hmm.
on to where we need to put in action because these asks aren't
Mm-hmm.
being respected.
Yeah.
Um, I guess I'm not asking this
My
very well.
my action
Like,
would be to close the distance and take the back.
okay, that's kind of what I was wondering. Like, if there would be like an
Mm-hmm.
initial strike for like a kind of immediate, what's the
Mm-hmm.
word? To get them to what's that word when you just like the word is
Yeah, because I feel like if you're on the defensive, you stay on the defensive, right?
I
If
see what
it's
you're saying.
already past, if they've already like gone past the point where like this is where you have to make a decision, right? And everybody has their own decisions, but that would be my decision. My decision would be to
Got you.
close the distance and take the back so that at least I had control, like I was behind them. They didn't have any of their tools to attack me with. And then if
Hmm.
I had their back, I could create space, I could take them down. I had more options in that space versus if I was in front of them.
I like that a lot. Yeah, there's a position we work that's like going to the back, kind of getting a seatbelt position, and then
Hmm.
pulling that into their waistline to prevent them from being able to like access any tools, like I don't know, an appendix,
Yeah.
concealed knife or something like that. So that's so cool to hear that like that's already something you implement and talk about. And do you do a lot of like mental training when it comes to like scenario? Like if you're in a situation and you do feel like something's off, do you run through like what you're gonna do? Worst case scenario, kind of. Say you're not able to leave right away. Maybe your kid is like buying some gun at the counter at the gas station, and you're like, you're seeing something, you're keeping an eye on it. Do you tend to like scenario train in your head a little bit?
I don't know if scenario training, but I definitely do like kind of run through like a mental checklist, you
I
know?
see. Okay.
So I
Yeah.
just feel like if you keep the same mental checklist in any scenario, it's a little easier. Like
Yeah.
um, to be able to keep it clean. If you keep
Yes.
it simple, it's easy to always run back to that. So if you have um, like a series of things that you can run through, then I think you're kind of like ahead of the curve. But to
Yes.
me, the biggest thing is yeah, obviously you have to make sure that I always like look for the hands, where the hands are, what
Yes.
are the hands doing? Um, and then obviously you're looking for weapons to see if they have any weapons because that makes a big difference too. Like if they have a gun, do you close the distance? If they have a knife, you don't want to close the distance. You
Right.
know what I mean? So
Yes.
like
Oh, yes. Absolutely. I mean,
all of these different things, and that's
yeah.
something that I think is very important for people that are getting into firearms for self-defense have to understand too is not always in your best interest to present the weapon or to bring it into play because as soon as
Right.
it's not just because it's your weapon. If it when it's in play, it's both of the people's weapon.
Yes. Absolutely.
And if you're not trained for that, then it can take a dangerous situation into a life-threatening situation.
Yes.
There was a scenario out here in Albuquerque where a lot of the massage parlors were getting robbed at night because a lot of them are they're older Asian ladies that
Mm.
are there by themselves, and these robbers knew that, so it was just an easy target. They most of the time they just take cash, so they know that they had cash like in the safe and stuff. So a lot of these massage parlors were getting hit up, and so one of the owners left a gun in the safe and told the ladies, if you had to defend yourself, the gun's in the safe. And there was a guy that came in, and usually at night they would only let one person in at a time. So the lady let him in, locked the door behind her. She was like taking him to the room, and then he pulled out a gun on her, and he grabbed her by the hair and pulled her to the front and brought his accomplice in, and forced her to the safe. And I'm sure she had no training with that gun, but she was left with an option. Like, what does she do? Now she's going to open the safe. Is he going to see the gun? Should she use the gun? She didn't know what to do. So as soon as she opened the safe, she grabbed the gun and she pointed at the first thing she saw. She pointed at the guy that didn't have the gun. She shot, and the guy that did have the gun emptied the magazine in her face and ended up killing her on the spot. And I always talk to my husband about that. Like, I wonder if the gun wasn't there, if she still would have been alive. She didn't have that. So sometimes it's not the best, especially if you don't have the training to introduce weapons.
Right. Absolutely. Yes. I mean, the easiest kind of example physically you can give yourself is like whoever's standing closest by. Like if you guys were to reach out and touch hands, how far back do you have to like be at, fingertip distance? And then think about drawing a gun from that distance. It then becomes a fight over the gun. And yeah, the accidents that happen with people mishandling firearms are typically like they can be more lethal than actual self-defense scenarios. I mean, there's so much that goes into that. I know we met at SHOT Show. I don't think I actually knew kind of who you were there with, or maybe you were just there to look around. But as far as like concealed carry experience goes, where, if you don't mind sharing, like where are you at with that? Is it something you currently practice? And also feel free to just not answer that if you don't want to share
Yeah.
that.
Well, that's what got me into the firearms space to begin with. We live in Albuquerque, and it's a super dangerous city.
I've
So,
heard, yes.
I told my husband was just worried about me because I was always like out and about on my own, and there's just so many things that are out of his control that he
Right.
wanted me to start carrying. And I told him, babe, I almost had I have a healthy respect for firearms, and I remember telling him I don't feel comfortable walking around with this. I don't know how to use it.
Sure.
And honestly, I think my first instinct would not be to go for a gun if I
Sure.
were in a scenario. And he was like, "Well, let's fix that." And that's when we
Yeah.
started training. Obviously, you have to go through training to get your concealed carry. So just that basic introduction is kind of what got me into it, and the fact that I didn't know as much as I wanted to
Mhm.
was what got me into understanding the weapon more, having like it, and it goes down to the very basics of like, how do you clear the weapon? How do you load the weapon? How do you, do you carry it with one in the chamber? Are you around kids?
Right.
How are you concealing it? All of these things, and it really does take. It takes time to practice, and if you don't have the healthy respect for it, and enough of a respect for it to implement that training into your everyday life, then it's probably not a good idea for you to be carrying. And I think that's what's important for people. A lot of people are like, oh, I'm going to protect myself, and then they go out and then they buy a firearm and they never shot it once in their life, and they think it's going to save their life one of these days, and then they go to pull it out and they don't even, it's not even loaded, or they don't even know how to chamber it, or it gets stuck and they don't know how to like take the jam out. There's all these things that they have to prepare themselves for, that
Yes.
I think is like the responsibility of the gun owner to train themselves to do.
Right.
And it's just like fighting, right? Like
Right.
I can't be a professional fighter if I'm just doing karate in the garage. You know what I'm saying?
Sure.
I
Yeah.
better
Yeah.
go out and get a good coach,
Right.
and make sure that they walk me through the things. And there's so much training that you can do on your own, with no ammo whatsoever, to get you prepared for that. And I think that's very important. But yeah, like it is to me, I feel like when it comes down to it, when you do have all that training behind you, it is like the great equalizer, right? Because
Yeah.
um, a, a firearm isn't it doesn't pick sides. It doesn't do, it doesn't do all of these
Yes.
things. Like there are no weight classes in firearms. I guess there could be, or
Sure,
but like,
sure. That's
like
so funny. I love that. Yeah.
um, and so it's a tool, just like anything else. Just like my hands are tools, just like a phone is a tool, just like a car is
Yes.
a tool, just like money is a tool. Like it can be used for good and it can be used for bad. And I think that you have to have the healthy respect for it. And that's what got me into the firearms is I'm not gonna carry, I'm not gonna conceal carry if I don't understand the tool that I have on
Right.
me, you know?
I love
And
that.
then I got into it, and then it was just like one of those things. I started doing like grappling with
Hmm.
weapons. I remember like doing like a grappling session, and then I got the gun out of their hands and I threw it, and they were like, "Well, now his buddy that's standing over there has the gun, and he's gonna shoot you." And then I'm like, "Oh, dang!" All these
Sure.
things. It's just like what I really fell in love with is that like to me, I think it's like it's an extension of martial arts. It's just like
Yeah.
an added weapon, right? So now I have the foundation of jujitsu and fighting and all these different martial arts that I've done throughout my career. Now getting into firearms, it's just an extension of that martial art and it's just like it's like what you said when you did you do taekwondo or karate?
I did. So I did karate for a couple summers.
Hmm.
So like very loosely. I mostly went because their sparring was so much cooler than the Korean martial arts I did for
Hmm.
7 years. So that's what I had
Hmm.
my black belt in. But I no
Okay.
longer, like do that art. So I don't,
Yeah.
profess that black belt more than just talking about it as an experience. But anyway, yes,
Right.
it was a Korean style martial arts called Musulwan. Is what I started in.
Yes. But it's still a martial art, right? But when you do
Yes,
it,
of
it's like when
course.
I got my black belt in karate, like I was like, I thought I was the shit. I was like,
Yeah,
yeah, I'm a black belt. And
exactly.
then
I'm a
and then
black
I went
belt.
to like a community college where they were doing like just basic old sparring and I got my ass beat and I was like, dang,
Really?
like there are
Okay.
levels to this, right? And
Yes,
so
yes.
not to take anything away from the black belt that I got, but it was
Sure.
very foundational. It was very elementary
Yeah.
to everything else that I could learn and am still learning till this day, right? And
Right.
it's the same thing in firearms. It's like you get into it and the more you learn about it, the more you realize you have no idea like what that like how much more you can unravel in the world of firearms and how much more you can understand. And it's just like a continuous learning experience, which is what I love because that's why I fell in love with martial arts.
Right. Ugh, I love that. And speaking of, because you have so much practice in multiple disciplines, if you had to give a woman advice for like where to start with a martial art, what would you recommend to them?
Jiu-jitsu. Like, I mean,
Beautiful.
the very first move you learn is the guard, which is it
Hmm.
could be a very uncomfortable place for some people to be because that's where a guy
Yes.
is going to go to take advantage of you. And
Yes.
for a lot of women, it's uncomfortable. But if you understand that the guard is a power position in jujitsu, then if somebody puts you in that position, you're like, bro, you about to get broke. You know what I mean?
Yes,
Like
exactly. Yes.
it takes that fear away because you've instilled confidence in yourself because you're put in that position on a daily basis. And so the fear of it, the unknown of it is taken
Mhm.
away.
I love that. Yes, and being on your back on the ground is so uncomfortable. Like I I love that jujitsu exposes you to that. It's so cool. And I have walked more women than I can remember and count through their first jujitsu class. And like, it's really weird. Not weird. That's a bad word for it. It's always interesting to me that like, it's not natural for them to like put their feet up and step on my hips as I'm walking into them? And I'm always so just elated that they're going to leave with just this even basic feeling of like, pushing at someone's hips, doing a tactical stand up, when the timing's right, like working on the timing element of a tactical get up kind of thing. And yeah, I completely agree. I love jujitsu. And then say someone's like, you know what? No, I don't want to start with jujitsu. I'll think about it later. I want to maybe do some striking art. Do you have a recommendation there on like what type of gym they should look into? Of course, given they're in a place where they have these options.
Hmm. I it's hard for me to say because I always
Hmm.
revert back to jujitsu because
Right.
it's a gentle art, right? You can
Yeah.
be at any place in life, you can be at any age in life, and it introduces so many important things when it comes to combat. And because the body contact to me, I think is like probably one of the most important. So many people are uncomfortable with that body contact, and if you can
Hmm.
kind of take that away, then a lot of your fears and a lot of things that would normally freeze a person goes away.
Right.
When striking, maybe Muay Thai because
Okay.
they'll teach you, you know, you learn strikes with elbows and knees, and if you it takes it takes years and years and years to learn how to throw a proper punch without breaking your hand, and even so, like, you know, the the hand isn't meant to like hit hard things like the brain, like
Right.
the skull,
The
the
skull.
skull.
Yeah. Yeah,
So
absolutely.
if you don't know how to punch properly, and if you're taking off, like there's so many things that could go wrong in a situation where you have to think on the fly. And so learning how to throw proper elbows and knees, I think, could be helpful. But wrestling, even just like
Dude. Yes. So underappreciated. Like, sorry. Yes. I'm glad
yeah,
you said
but
that. I was, yeah.
it's the same thing, right? Because the fight
Yes.
starts standing, and so even with a lot of my jujitsu students, they are so comfortable on their back that they'll pull guard. And pulling guard in a scenario where somebody's trying to take advantage of you, and if they have weapons, sometimes that's not the best place to be. So like learning wrestling, learning how to like off like use somebody else's off balance to off kilter them and take them down so that you have the higher ground. They're on the ground and you're up, you have choices, is important to me too. Like I think that like and that's just from getting into jujitsu from a MMA standpoint. The only reason why I started training jujitsu is because I needed to learn how to do jujitsu if I wanted to fight MMA. So when I started learning jujitsu, I learned it from the mindset of how is this going to help me in an MMA fight. And so I think MMA is probably the closest to self-defense that you can get because in jiu-jitsu, you learn how to do jiu-jitsu, you learn leg locks, you learn berimbolos, you learn all of these things that are particular to that specific sport. Where you can go in for like a knee bar in a street fight and you get punched in the face, like it's not very
Sorry.
effective. You know what I'm saying? Or
Yeah.
like just the fact of you going to your back. Can you imagine going to your back like in an alley or something? You don't know what's
Hell
on the
no.
ground, if there's like
Hopefully never.
glass, this and that.
Yes.
So there's
Concrete.
so
Jesus.
mhm,
Yeah.
like there's just so many different things that you don't really think about. And so even when I go to teach jujitsu, I have a different mindset of teaching jujitsu than my jujitsu coach because he's done jujitsu all his life. I got into jujitsu to fight, you
Right.
know? And so a lot of my jujitsu, I'm small, right? Even going into the 115-pound division, I'm usually one of the smaller girls in that weight class. And so if I would go to my back, I would get smashed really easily. Not only that I would get smashed, but when you're on your back in an MMA fight, it looks bad to the judges. Even if you're attacking from your back, you're the person on the bottom. The person on top is the one that has a higher ground. So to me,
Yeah.
MMA grappling is the closest to a real fight, like a real self-defense scenario that you can get yourself into because, you'll be in jujitsu trying to pass and you'll be stuck in that position for 5 minutes. If I'm in a position that I don't like to be in MMA, I'm just gonna punch you in the face.
Thousand
And then
percent.
right, it's
Love
like
that.
you punch to pass, you punch to create space, you punch,
Mm.
so so there are different things that you learn position wise, skill wise, just like strategy wise in MMA
Yeah.
grappling versus like traditional jujitsu. But like to get started, that's hard to throw yourself into MMA because there's so much to learn. That's
Yes.
why I say jujitsu because you get the basics.
Mm. Okay, beautiful. I am so glad you talked about kind of the spectrum of jujitsu to MMA. I've talked to people before that are like, I don't want to just do grappling. I want to do something with striking. And so I have recommended MMA, but I've always talked to them about like gym selection, making sure you're going to a gym where it's not like just like a ton of meatheads, that are going to injure you,
Mm-hmm.
or there's something to gym selection, and that's been a huge topic on the podcast because
Mm-hmm.
before I found my home gym here in Utah, I went to two others, and so this was my third. I almost had this like a dating
Yeah.
experience with gyms
Mm-hmm.
around because you have to make sure it's a space where you're not going to get injured. Everyone wants to go back to work the next day and be able to like, sit right at their desk and, do their thing. Especially like cops, like they can't be like injured. You know what I mean? Um,
Yeah.
but did that bring up something for you?
Well, I just think it's funny that's why it's hard to find an MMA gym if it's just something that you're wanting to learn, because
Right.
most people that are doing MMA are doing it to pursue a career. And so you have
Really?
to like
Okay.
that's what I tell people all the time, like when they used to want to
Okay.
come to train at Jackson, like, bro, you swimming with the sharks. You're not going
Right.
under, you're not trying to find Nemo, okay? We're not
Right.
finding. So like when you get
Right.
around with the amateur, fighter or a professional fighter, they have they have a certain set of things that they're trying to get done in that round. And one of them is to win the round, right? And so you have to be prepared for that. And that's why I say jujitsu, because jujitsu is a lifelong sport. It's something that you can do for your entire life. Even the competitors understand that. And if you're going against a competitor, a lot of times they'll let you do stuff or they'll put themselves in bad positions so they can work their way out of it if you find the right gym.
Interesting.
You know what I mean?
Yes.
But like going to an MMA gym is hard because it's not recreational,
Right.
at least in my experiences, and maybe that's because I'm a professional fighter. If I'm going to a different
Sure.
gym and everybody knows that I'm a professional fighter, they're testing me because they want to see what
Right.
I got. You know what I mean?
Right.
So it really is going to be. I do think it's important to find the perfect gym. That's kind of what we were talking about earlier, as far as like trusting in your intuition and knowing
Mhm.
what spaces you feel safe in, and it's up to you to either stay in a safe place, or if you feel uncomfortable in a place where you should be able to trust your teammates and you're not in a place where you feel like you can trust them, it's it's up to you to remove yourself from those places and to go into a place where you find people that are like-minded, where you find a community of people that you vibe with and are along the same mindset and end goal as you.
I love that. Oh yeah. Oh gosh, the community. It's like the best part, in my opinion. One of the best, besides learning how to destroy someone. That's pretty cool. But learning, getting to know people, gosh, there's something about jujitsu. Like if it's all these people from like various ages, various walks of life, life, you know
Hmm.
what I mean?
Yeah.
Comes to the same spot to repeatedly be tested in ways that like you can't get anywhere else. Like
Hmm.
it's involuntary yoga, dude. Like it's not something that you like go to and just think, I'm going to take it easy today. Because if you don't show up and pay attention to the technique being taught, if you don't show up and scale the resistance you're giving your partner properly, you can't be a good partner. It'll be a waste of your time. Like you really have to just show up and give what you have. And like you won't be at 100% every day, but um full transparency, I took like 2 years off of jujitsu and I came back and was like, I'm not really feeling gi anymore. I kind of want to do no gi. Like
Really?
no gi is so okay. Don't get me wrong. I do go to gi every now and then because I miss it, but I've wanted to challenge myself. Like right now, I'm training for the tactical games. I'm also training for a half marathon. I'm training for the shotgun world shoot. I've got a lot of disciplines, and my way of kind of compromising in a way with myself is like, okay, I may not go for 2 hours and do both classes, but I can definitely afford a solid hour and 15 of no gi. And of course, when I have extra time or I'm feeling like hating myself, I'll, put on my gi, and I'm joking. But sweating a little bit extra. But with that said, yeah, this is the first time I've really ever practiced no gi, and it is humbling. Not having something like I keep grabbing people's shirts and they're like, stop it. And I'm like, sorry. It's a habit. I'll do it usually when I'm desperate, like, no, 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 no. Like
Yeah. Yeah.
you could feel something coming on. But yeah, the community's been great. Like I love my new gym. I feel like I have a whole like kind of family here without getting, I keep my distance and I like to vet people, but just we're all just there and the camaraderie is It's just awesome.
You do. You have to vet people, and I always tell people that's why we have like intro classes. You need to see the instruction. You need to see how the classes run, the structure of it. You need to be able to watch how they go live and how they like problem solve through different scenarios and stuff like that. And
Yes.
there's always going you can't control everybody's personality. Everybody has a different personality. There you're gonna have some
Right.
people that like have a super big ego, and then you're gonna have other
Mhm.
people that don't. But if you have good leadership in the school, then they usually are either they're either weeded out or they are taken care of in a way where they know who the problem students are, and they match them up with other students accordingly, like the students that can control and dictate pace and stuff like that. Because
Yes.
obviously, honestly, I think that martial arts is important for those people that have egos, and I think it's important for people that have anger issues, because jujitsu will help iron those problems out, because you can't always be the hammer. There's always somebody bigger and badder than you, and if you train long enough, you will feel that. And obviously at my school, I think it's important to bring new students in and to let them feel comfortable and to show them a community of family and stuff like that. But I also think it's important to not get catered to all the time. Like,
Mm.
no, bro, like, yes, you're learning, and we're going to show you how to hit these submissions, and you're going to go with higher belts that are going to let you hit these submissions. But there's going to come a point in time where you've been here long enough that you need a hard round and you need to get beat. And that's just the process of martial arts.
I love that. Okay, I'm just gonna I was planning on like telling you this after, but honestly, it's one of my biggest a little bit of a pivot here. It's one of my biggest like regrets getting my second no surgery. Um, I knew, like, I talked to the surgeon, and like, this is when I was leaving for medical school. I was like leaving behind my martial arts past. I'd like healed a lot in therapy, and I was like, maybe this is just not for me anymore. And I remember like I hated my nose so much. Like, it looked just in my looking back, I'm like, you know what? Holy crap. Like, it wasn't that bad. But I also couldn't breathe very well. So,
Yeah.
um, sleep was
Yeah.
hard and things like that. But
Yeah.
I never got to actually fight. And it's been one of my like I actually regret getting that surgery because I feel like I could have just gotten it messed up like a little bit more and then had like another surgery. You know what I mean?
Hmm.
Um and I don't know. I Do you have like a message to anyone? I don't know, like maybe me or I'm just kidding. Anyone who is in this place in life where they're like, I do want to take this to the next level. Like maybe we're not speaking here to the average, person interested in self-defense, but someone who's actually interested in the fight. But maybe they're like 20, they're like 29, 30, 32. They're not in a place where they feel like they're at their prime to do so, but they're still interested. I don't know. Is there any like message you would have for people? Because I think from what I saw, your first UFC fight was when you were 29. Is that correct?
I was pretty up there. I want to say,
Yeah.
because I had a Rhea
Okay.
when I got pregnant when I was 25. I had a Rhea when I was 26, and then
Yeah.
I stayed at Invicta, and I became the atomweight world champion with Invicta. Then I
Amazing.
lost. Then I lost the belt, and that's when I got signed to UFC. So everything kind of a little bit of a blur. But I do want.
Totally fair.
I was already like well into my MMA career. Like I already had a good amount of fights under my belt before I got signed to the
Right.
UFC. So what I would tell somebody uh, in your position
Perfect.
is that if it's on your mind and if it's on your heart, then I would go for it. But you also like, I guess the question is like what your end goal is. If your end goal is to see what it feels like to step inside the octagon and test yourself one or two times, then I say for sure 100% go for it. But if your goal is to like become a professional fighter, you really have to kind of hunker down and like make that be your main priority. Does that make
Makes
sense?
sense. It does. It absolutely makes sense. Absolutely. I wouldn't be able to take it on this year. I need to make sure I don't get any I don't get injured too badly, but I normally have to wear like a helmet when I train.
Mhm.
It's like the most unsexy thing ever. I've just like changed it. I've frameworked it in my mind to be like, no, I look like a badass. Like this is the only
Yeah,
thing
hell yeah.
that allows me to not feel like an idiot when I'm wearing it. But it has like a literal metal grate in front of my like nose and mouth area to
Yeah,
protect myself.
yeah.
And
But that's
lately,
hard too.
yeah,
Sometimes that can be a distraction, especially if
yes,
you're trying to like slip and like move,
yes.
and especially if you're grappling with it. And when you do MMA, you use your head a lot, So then it's like if you have this big helmet on, then now your perception of how to use your head changes. So you're like you get used to what an inch and a half, 2 inches of padding when you're
Hmm.
using head position, when you're trying to slip under, when you're trying to do duck unders, versus if you didn't have any of that and you can slip faster, or you can actually
Hmm.
use your head to take them down and grind them out. So
Yeah,
that's another thing to think about as well. But
absolutely.
like the only reason why I say is like if you want to take a couple fights like as an amateur to do it, because it does like it is very fulfilling to know that you stepped in there and put yourself, through that. But if you're trying to like make it professionally, you have to have a certain amount of amateur fights, and then you have to build a record as a professional. And so that takes a lot of time. And unfortunately, the way the fight world works is like once you hit a certain age, they view you in a different light. In the
Right.
fight world, like you can be 35 and you can feel in your prime, but to a promoter, you're at the end of your career.
I see. I see. What's like the golden age range to get started in like a professional fighting
I,
path?
I, I would say to start your fight career at like 20,
Shit.
20, like your professional, like your amateur career. I would
Right.
say your amateur career, you should probably spend a good 2, 3, or 4 years, depending on how well you do, because
Yeah.
you have to, like you need the cage experience. You need those highlight fights where you just knocking fools out and submitting people, and that helps you get signed to like a bigger promotion. But you also need those grinders where you're fighting, you know. All the way to distance, where you're getting split decisions, where you're getting losses and figuring out how to problem solve through those, because by the time you get into your pro career, it stays with you, and you want to be able to have all that experience. I never got an amateur MMA career.
Hmm.
I had to go right into a professional because the girl that I was supposed to fight in my amateur debut pulled out, and the only girl they had available was a 2-0 girl that had already been fighting. So I had to fight her because she was the only one I had available. Um, but
Whoa.
obviously that was a long time ago, you know?
Yeah. Sorry, I was speechless for a second. I was like, oh my God, say something. That's
Yeah, a long time ago. Yeah.
that's insane. Okay.
Now there's time. So
Yeah.
that's the only reason why I say is like, I mean, it has gotten to the point where it's evolved where you have to have a pretty good resume in order to move into the professional world, you know?
That's
And
good to
so that's the
know.
only reason why I say that. But I also think that if it's on your mind and you're, a lifelong martial artist, then I would say take some amateur fights to say that you did it.
I know I need to talk to an ENT nose person to see what it would like. The last surgery I had, he was like, you cannot get hit again. And I was like,
Okay.
but also like in jujitsu, I have been smashed a few times and I've been like, I'm
Yeah.
fine. Like, yes, it
Hmm.
hurt like a MRFer, but like I was fine. I can breathe. I'm a slight bit off center, but like it's fine. It still looks
Yeah.
good, you know? My side profile is on, so I'll take
I
it.
would have never known.
Thank you.
I broke my nose a good probably 3 or 4 or 5 times until I got
That's me.
surgery, and it was towards the end of my career. But the surgeon said the same thing. Once you get surgery, like it heals like in 6 months, but he told me it takes a good 5 years for it to actually all set into place and all of that stuff. So
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I guess my mentality behind that is like YOLO,
YOLO,
if you do.
1,000%. Dude, YOLO is everything for me. Yeah, I live by that shit. Like that, yes. I think YOLO hit when I was like in junior high, and I was like, this will never leave me. And it never did. So it's good. It's good stuff.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay, beautiful. Man, this has been such an incredible episode. I cannot wait to listen back to it and just try to absorb everything again, when I'm not in host mode. But I would really love it before we go. First of all, do you have anything coming up this year besides your podcast that you are excited to just kind of pursue that you want to share?
Well, the biggest thing is the podcast,
Very nice.
I spent 18 years of my life fighting professionally, and when you're in that mode, it's a very high stress. Like you're constantly in like a state of mind where you're in survival mode because you're always like, how do I stay on top? And I think it wrecked me both mentally and physically because when I was in fight camp, I was super disciplined. I was super strategic with my diet, with my workouts and everything. And then I would get out of fight camp, and so like I let the pendulum swing hard, And when I got out of fight camp, it was like party time, eating ice cream, and all of these things. And so that's how I had balance in life. And now that I'm not fighting, it's for me right now, the biggest thing is to find a balance in life that I'm not swinging so hard, on either end of the spectrum. And that's proven to be harder than I expected because
Yeah.
my balance was like going hard in the paint. That was my
Right.
balance. And so
Right.
like when I'm doing like these mediocre workouts where I'm not even sweating, I'm like, what am I even doing with my life? But I understand like I need like it's just a new life for me and a new world for me.
Right.
So yeah, like the podcast is going to be something, and just focusing on my jujitsu school and getting that up and running, and just trying to enjoy all the little moments in my daughter's life right now, and yeah, just trying to find balance.
Oh, that's so beautiful. That's so beautiful. Thank you for sharing that. And yeah, dude, when the only constant in life is change, it's like, how are you supposed to like ever truly achieve 100% balance? And there's just no way, right? Like, we got to just keep doing our best, showing up when we're not ready, even. Gosh, like,
Hmm.
you are the epitome of that. So, not to say you're not, God, that sounded terrible. Well,
I,
you
I
really show
definitely
up when you're
wasn't
not
ready.
ready.
I definitely wasn't ready for this interview.
No, hey, no, it was really fun to do the tech setup before, and I got to learn that you're gonna do a podcast. That's freaking awesome. It all happened how it was supposed to. And I just know this episode is gonna be a heavy hitter. It's gonna inspire so many people. And I'm just so thankful that you took so much time out of your day to come here and speak on She Shield. It started as an endeavor to spread resources in an industry that has very few standards, right? To call something an industry is to say it has standards, and there aren't a lot. And I was seeing a lot of like full presentation draws, you know, and then like nothing. And then like martial arts, and like there's no in between. And I was like, man, I could be a voice here. Like, I'm a
Hmm.
young female in the space. Like, I could do some good here. And I've been very
100%.
lucky to have the delusion behind writing people and being like, hey, want to come on my podcast? Like, do you want to come?
No,
And
you
then
just,
like,
yeah.
thankful
The
people like you come on.
courage. And
Thank you.
also just like I think people can get so wrapped up and intimidated, especially in the firearms. I
Yes.
mean, it's the same thing as martial arts, right? It's like
Yeah.
you can get intimidated, but I always tell people everybody starts from square one, even the Navy SEALs. At some
Yes.
point in their career, they did not know how to shoot a gun. You
Absolutely.
know what I mean? So
Yes.
you're starting in the same spot that they were starting in. Is that they didn't come out of the mama's womb like presenting and all that stuff.
Ready to stab. Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Gosh, I love that. Well, thank you so much, Michelle, for your time. I cannot wait for this episode to go up next week. And in the meantime, I hope to stay in touch. I hope to come to your gym. I will come to your gym. I'd love to like come in and, roll around
Hmm.
and hang out with the, other people there, and kind of see the community you've built. If you're cool with that, love to travel down and see that. That's freaking
Yeah,
awesome.
100%. I would
Um,
love that. Yeah.
Absolutely. And for those listening, all of Michelle's information will be linked in the show notes, which are the notes below the pod or pod title. So if you want to see her social media, you want to follow along on her podcast journey, you should absolutely do that. Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Michelle. We'll go ahead and wrap the episode here. All right, guys, stay safe and stay vigilant.